Tech UK, we are the UK trade body for the tech sector as a whole, and it's our absolute pleasure to be here at the summit. Myself and Tess Buckley, who's the organizer of this session, we're really thrilled to be here, so thank you for the invitation. And if you want to know more about Tech UK, go and check out the UK Pavilion. We're in the stick as well. We're in the UK Pavilion over in Hall 14. It's worth the extra security scanner. Go and check us out. Today we're going to be talking all about a topic that's close to our heart, AI assurance, and driving trust and adoption of AI from principles to proof, and really how AI assurance and standards are helping us to do that. AI assurance really arrived in a bit more of the mainstream last year, although many of us have been talking about it for many years now. We saw governments in the UK, Europe, and in Singapore starting to integrate AI assurance into their governance frameworks, into their principles and their controls. We've also seen companies, not just the big four, but companies like JP Morgan starting to talk about AI assurance. So it's becoming part of the conversation, with the goal being how you put ethical principles, ethical frameworks into practice, and establishing real trust that can then drive real adoption of AI. So I have an amazing panel of experts. We hope one more is joining us. That's why there's an empty chair here. Our experts on AI standards, governance, industry. We're going to talk about what does transformation, what does development actually mean in terms of the role of AI assurance and AI standards. What are the opportunities here for India? What are the opportunities for the UK and India to work together on this? Which sectors are leading the way? And I'm sure a lot more as well. So it's all going to be about AI assurance in practice, strategic opportunities, and collaboration, which I think is really, collaboration is the word of the summit, right? That's why we're all here. But before I introduce the panel and before we kick off, we're really thrilled to have with us a presentation that's going to start kind of setting the scene for the conversation. So Carsten Maple, who's from the Alan Turing Institute. Carsten, thank you so much for being with us. Can you perhaps set the scene a little bit and give us a bit of an overview of AI standards in the ecosystem where we are? And then I'll get the panel to introduce themselves and then we'll kick it off.
Sure, thanks very much, Sue. So it's a real pleasure to be here, and it's great how packed this room is, because it's a really important area, assuring AI. So my name's Carsten Maple, as Sue mentioned. So I'm from the Alan Turing Institute, the National Institute for Data Science and AI in the UK, and also the University of Warwick. And in the UK, we have a national hub for edge artificial intelligence. So I've got some colleagues from that hub here as well. So, why does AI assurance matter? I find myself talking at quite a lot of events to all kinds of audiences, and it's great to set the scene for such a talented panel that's really going to delve into some of the issues around this. But what we're seeing is, and part of my session, so I will be speaking, organising a panel on Friday around democratization of AI, and that's a really great thing, right? And AI's got the power to really lift nations, and I think we're going to see a lot of global effort in this area. But democratization of AI means it's in the hands of everybody, and that brings problems as well as some great things. You've probably seen recently OpenClaw, or Clawbot, or Maltbook. The biggest changes in rebranding exercise in 1 week, and so some great power. And for me, as a director of cybersecurity, quite a bit of worry as well. So this age of agentic AI really means that we need to start thinking about how we govern and assure AI. So agentic AI is autonomous or semi-autonomous agents that they can plan tools, they can talk to other agents. And this example that I've spoken about in the UK to the Digital Regulators Cooperation Forum before was about a holiday agent you might have. So if I decide to have this agent, and actually this was before OpenClaw was around, but the technology existed prior to that, but I would have to give access to my diary maybe, and maybe also my bank so that they know how much money I'd got, maybe of my partner and children. And this agent could then go and discuss with other agents, perhaps some kind of hotel booking agents or Trivago or whichever you decide to use rather than individual hotels, and look at flights. All of that coordination seems fantastic. But there is a risk. Yeah, there's a risk because this low or no code agents that's proliferating, and I've got to say, I see this not only hobbyists, but actually in industry, people who really are not grounded in developing software that needs to be resilient. But we're seeing many non-security engineers, people who are putting out these systems. And one of the concerns that we've seen already with these agentic systems, and you'll hear from some of the panel, I'm sure, because Holistic will do some of this testing, there could be privacy exfiltration, so data exfiltration that can go on as agents start communicating. There will be trust gaps, and we're seeing the development. So A2A has been around, so agent-to-agent communication has been around for a little while now, and it's much more powerful than MCP, Model Context Protocol. But we're seeing also A2P develop, and we'll see more systems and communication protocols develop. So it's really important that we develop AI assurance processes. So it's not new. This is a paper that a bunch of academics, I was included, developed about AI governance back in 2021 in one of the leading journals for machine intelligence, Nature Machine Intelligence. And this set out some of the principles. What we're looking at now is, that's okay. One of the things that we've got to decide is how do we test AI systems? So the NIST Risk Management Framework, AI RMF version 2, gives some idea about some of the things that we want to look at. Is it safe? Is it secure and resilient? Is it valid? So that's one of the questions I hope that the panel will consider today. We need to think about how appropriate and verifiable is that assessment. You need to test the right things for the right questions. And you need some kind of audit. It doesn't need to be a public audit, but what you do needs to be auditable by somebody. And that's certainly some of the work that we're looking at in ML Commons at the moment. We need justified evidence collection to show how trustworthy our AI is. But there are many ways to test, yeah? And the problem is, if we take the wrong instrument to test, then we're actually not assuring the AI appropriately. We need to think what is sufficient and acceptable. What are the benchmarks? So I mentioned ML Commons and its AI Luminate. That is one such benchmark. It's a global effort, and it will provide the standards that are required, the de facto practical standards that are required, but we still need to decide for every other type of system, for a health system, for a finance system, what is sufficient. And if we test, how long is that assessment valid for? So I've just put a list of things, and we've got the British Standards Institute here, BSI, who have coordinated this event. And I'm just putting up the fact that there are so many different standards. And I think Tim, who's an expert I've known for many years, can talk about some of these. But these first standards are just software standards, been around for quite some time. But then we see the development of AI standards. Most notably, many of you will have heard of 42001, quite analogous to 27001, those in the security arena. There's 42119. I'm not going to go through them all, but I just want to show you how many different types of standards there are. So there is a plethora of support there in terms of standards and guidance, and what's important is to reflect on those questions that I set out and think what's the most appropriate way for your system that you are developing. Sue, I'll hand over to you because the panel can talk a little bit further.
Great. Thank you, Carsten. Thank you so much for setting that scene. So let's get to the panel and some amazing experts for you to hear from. And then I've got some questions for them. Hopefully we'll leave a bit of time for some questions at the end as well. I'm just going to ask them each to just quickly introduce themselves, their title and their organization, then we'll get going. Natasha, great to have you with us. Please just introduce yourself briefly.
Thanks, Sue. It's wonderful to be here today. I'm Natasha Crampton. I'm a Vice President and Chief Responsible AI Officer at Microsoft. What that means is that I both help to define and govern, make sure that people are doing what they say they're doing, the internal practice of responsible AI at Microsoft. That means I work very closely with our engineering teams building new AI systems and models. And I'm also responsible for working externally as well and being part of the conversation about what are those new standards or norms or laws that we need to help make sure that this technology is made available broadly and beneficially for people.
Yeah, Natasha's been working in this field for a number of years now, so it's really great to have her with us. Raj, great to have you with us too.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Raj Patel. I'm the VP of AI Transformation at Holistic AI. Holistic AI is an AI governance SaaS provider spun out of UCL 5 years ago. We provide end-to-end governance for enterprise clients, for small, medium businesses, for startups that have AI core to their business offering. We take a view from ideation all the way through to continuous monitoring and retirement of models. Because of our close affiliation with UCL, we are at the forefront of testing as well. So we are looking at agentic AI testing, explainability techniques. We're prevalent in that domain. And we work with the likes of Unilever, GSK, GE Healthcare to help them get a good visibility of their entire ecosystem, to maintain effective guardrails so that they can identify areas of risk, mitigate them effectively, and move forward with confidence. Thank you.
Thanks, Raj. Great to have you here, a real leading UK company. And then Tim, great to have you as well. But obviously, you know, this has been a joint BSI and Tech UK panel, so we're really thrilled to be joining forces to do this today. So please introduce yourself.
Thank you to Lawrence for helping that as well. Yes, so I'm Tim McGarr from BSI, so the British Standards Institution. So the part of BSI that I work in leads around certifying and testing of AI. So particularly one of the first accredited certification providers for 2001, and also doing reviews of medical devices and the like. But prior to that, I spent over a decade in the standards side of BSI, so involved in the AI standards right from the very beginning as well.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of experience. A really experienced panel, I'm sure you'll agree. To really get into the devil of the detail, I want to start with, rather than, and Carsten set us up in terms of the kind of parameters, but let's talk about AI assurance and practice. And Raj, perhaps I can start with you drawing on your experience and what you're seeing from sectors, particularly in the UK, but obviously from wider, that you're seeing the most mature around assurance practices already, and perhaps why? And are there sectors that are leading the way, or there are some that are perhaps lagging behind? And what is your sense of where we are right now, if that's a good place to start?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. I think it's an important question because different industries are within a spectrum. I think sectors have some that are leading, some that are lagging, definitely. But within that sector, there's also a spectrum of companies that are leading and lagging within them. So if you're in a sector that I'm saying is at the forefront and you're not quite there yet, don't feel bad. You're not going to be alone. Don't panic, for sure. So I think, Carsten, you set this up really well with your introduction to this, that we have to really look at what does AI assurance mean in practice? And that is taking something from an ethical statement or a principle to something that's quantifiable with evidence. And that is where we see the industries that are leading really make this scalable and repeatable. So industries that are leading this are ones that have had a history of reputational or governance requirements, the ones that have the highest consequence of something going wrong, so they're touching end customers, they have real liability against it going wrong, and ones that have been able to create these scalable processes. So these are industries like financial services, healthcare, critical infrastructure, defense. These are areas that if something is to go wrong, it will have a material consequence to their end user or to society at large. So when we look at those, I'll take financial services because I have a history with financial services institutions. We look to see what has made them successful in this. Number one is that they have been operating in a highly governed environment, highly regulated environment for a number of years. So from the financial crisis in 2008 onwards, banks, as an example, have been required to keep strong model documentation, be explainable in all of their outputs, to have good risk controls in process so that there's not a repeat of that catastrophic time back in 2008. Secondly is that that kind of stakeholder impact, they have reputational financial damage that could happen to the company as well, so they need to protect against that. And then finally is the innovation side of things. They want to make sure that they're moving forward with the right AI use cases, given the risks that are prevalent. So when we look to companies that are, or sectors I should say, that are lagging, what they should be looking to do is identify the AI use cases. First of all, you should have a good idea of what AI use cases are operating in your environment already. You can't govern what you can't see, so that's always a good starting point. Have a good, robust living inventory. And then is to set up your risk appetite as the core backbone of your AI governance process and your AI assurance process going forward. What I mean by that is that you don't need to throw the kitchen sink and high levels of scrutiny at everything. Your team's bandwidth is not going to be infinite. You need to make sure that you're applying good governance and quantitative testing and effective mitigations to use cases where it's needed, where it's high risk. Low risk ones, you should be able to mitigate away. You should be able to have pass-through mechanisms, but that will allow you to achieve something that is an innovation driver, not a checkbox exercise. It's something that allows you to use governance as an accelerator, assurance as an accelerator, to realize value. So I think that's kind of the foundational framework that I'd like to see other or general industries applying.
That's a great way of thinking about this, Raj, in terms of the value. And Natasha, I'd love to come to you and your experience, because we're talking about how do you, how do we help organizations bridge that gap between, okay, I'm doing cutting edge AI development, and I'm really excited about what I'm doing and the research or the product I'm developing, and then the kind of practical governance frameworks and practical assurance frameworks. And just thinking, following on from Raj's talking about how do we see it as a driver, how do you help, or how do companies bridge that gap? Is it about showing how this can create tangible business value or prevent risk as well? What are you seeing from how companies and organizations are addressing this, or you've addressed this in your own organization?
Yes, indeed. So when we started doing our responsible AI work at Microsoft almost a decade ago now,
Been that long?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Even the Office of Responsible AI that I have led from the very beginning, that will have existed for 7 years by the middle of this year. So at the beginning of our journey at Microsoft, we had exactly what Raj mentioned. We had a set of 6 high-level principles. So we said, AI systems that Microsoft is going to build are going to be fair, they'll be reliable and safe, they'll be private and secure, inclusive, accountable, and transparent. Now, those principles have been very important guiding North Stars for our work, but they are not sufficient by themselves. And that's simply because they're stated at such a high level that they don't answer sort of fundamental questions that our product building teams, our engineering teams have on the ground. So nobody argues with me when we say, look, we want to make sure that AI systems are fair, but what our engineering teams want to know is, what does that mean for the data that I need to collect in order to train this model? What type of testing do I need to do before releasing the system, and also on an ongoing basis? What documentation do I need to make available to our customers? So over the past almost decade now, we have been answering those questions at Microsoft. So taking a high-level set of principles and operationalizing them and making sure that we've got the receipts to show that we've done that work. So to bring things forward to, what does this assurance actually really look like in practice? Let me give you the example of M365 Copilot, which is one of our flagship AI products. Some of you might even use it. It takes all of our Office products like Word and Outlook and Excel, etc., that are well used around the world, and really supercharges them with AI features. Now, for us, it was important that not long after the international standard ISO 42001 became available, this is a management system standard, so it looks at the governance process around how you build a system like M365. We went and got certified against that standard, and that delivers real business value for us. Microsoft has many highly regulated financial services customers and healthcare customers and defense customers. Our customer base asks for and expects us to have these types of certifications. I think one of our insurance customers, it's global in nature, put it really well, which is to say, you know, unless you have the receipts in the form of, you know, certification against an international standard, it's like saying that you're a car manufacturing company, you've got safety engineers, but no one actually proves that the car has brakes and the car has airbags, and both of those things function in all the anticipated sort of and foreseeable operational circumstances in which they will be operated. So I think to finish on Sue's core point, assurance at this point is not just a nice to have. It is, you know, demanded in procurement processes, and it's a way of building trust across the supply chain, so that if we can offer, you know, our certifications forward, it means it empowers all of the many people who build off Microsoft's platform, make available applications in their context to actually leverage the work that we've done to help supercharge your work building applications as well.
Yeah, thank you, Natasha. Great examples. And Tim, come to you. Talk about AI assurance and practice. Let's go back into the kind of the tools in the toolbox, I suppose. And ISO 42001 is really becoming a reference standard. I'd be interested in your view of where do you think we are with that? What does successful certification actually require? And also, perhaps, are there common misconceptions that organizations have around implementing it? You know, if that's the good place to start, how do organizations need to think about it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, probably the best way to start where we're at. So, particularly we're seeing in terms of the certification side, it is massively picked up in recent months. It was already growing a lot. And it's really quite interesting where it's been driven from. So there are certain, in terms of certain countries and sectors that normally pick up certification, but 42001 is really driven by where AI is sitting. So financial services, ICT, professional services. And in terms of countries, India is actually second in the world in terms of accredited certification.
Wow,
so
that's great.
Very good.
Well done, everyone.
UK is number 4, still good, but not as good.
What's number 1, Tim?
US. And China's number 3, surprisingly, but
so India's really up there.
Yeah, definitely huge. So in terms of some of the misconceptions, so Carsten mentioned about 27001, and all these management systems follow the same structure, which is deliberate, so they're easy to pick up and use. But so there is some views that 42001 is just 27001 with a bit extra. It's not. It's something that's new. You have to work all the way through it to get it in place as well. Akin to what's been mentioned already, it's about certifying the organisation and their approach to AI governance, not a particular product, which Carsten also mentioned earlier on as well. And there is kind of this view about the link to regulation. So particularly, say, in the UK, there is a push towards using standards and assurance, including 42001, to demonstrate good governance. But really, as was said, the pull is coming through supply chains. Companies want to do this. Their customers want it. It's not because they've been forced to. It's because the market's really driving them to do it.
So in that case, Tim, perhaps I come on to you, and I want to move kind of perhaps just thinking about the strategic opportunity for India before we talk about how India and the UK, because it seems like we're on similar paths in terms of AI assurance, how we could potentially work together in partnership on this. But thinking about the strategic opportunity for Indian organizations, what should they be prioritizing then to capture this kind of AI assurance opportunity, you know, in the next 3 to 5 years? Is it that working with your partners, working with your supply chain, say, look, if you know you're going to need to do this, I can demonstrate that I can do this too. Is that the way to do it?
I think it's those two sides. One, it's, you know, 42001 is here. You know, whether it's in terms of taking uptake or certification, that's something that really demonstrates that you're a leader. and also getting involved, as sort of Carsten mentioned, the standard system as well. Yeah, and I think, I mean, one thing I was going to mention, so we recently announced that we'd certified Axis Bank, which is, it's the first, as far as I'm aware, the first bank in the world that's got 42001 certification. So, India is really a leader in this already.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Tasha, would love to what your advice would be for Indian companies thinking about if they haven't started on this kind of AI assurance, I hate that word, but journey, what should they be prioritizing? And then Raj, I'll come to you as well.
So I think here in the Indian context, it's a really great moment to lean into the role that assurance can play, recognizing Carsten's important point that there's not just one type of assurance that applies in every circumstance, but rather it's a range of tools and critically you need to sort of match the right tool to the right use case. But with the India AI Impact Summit, the Indian AI governance guidelines have also been published, and there's a number of important recommendations that are coming out of that I think will help pave a sensible course forward. So, for example, there will be an AI governance group that's established and a technology and policy expert committee. One very concrete thing that I think those groups could do is to develop what's called crosswalks between international standards and other mechanisms of assurance and some of the specific requirements in India. And what a crosswalk does is it shows how you can meet this, say, specific existing Indian law on the books in a way that also accrues to meeting the international standards. So it helps basically provide a map or a path that you can follow in order to see how, if you take a step like making sure you've got a valid incident response process, you can see how implementing those controls accrues to meeting your obligations under Indian law, as well as demonstrating a control that will be assessed in the context of a governance audit that might be scoped to a particular part of your business. So I think just trying to make sure in this moment that you really are connecting in all of the excellent activity in India to some of these broader frameworks that are cross-border. This is going to help not just more rapidly adapt and localize tech that's developed outside of India in India, but you're also going to export to the world too. And so that's why you want to make sure that you're using this moment to align and map wherever you can, so that you can get the benefit of these emerging global or cross-border standards.
Yeah, thank you. It's this really exciting conversation. I might be being a bit of a geek here, but we've been talking at Tech UK about AI assurance for, it'll be 10 years, our Digital Ethics Summit, which you spoke at really at the beginning, it'll be our 10th year this year. And now it actually feels like this is actually happening, right? It's actually having real world impact, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
But thank you for setting me up, because Raj, I wanted to ask you, and given your experience and your knowledge, a bit about frameworks and policy frameworks that can help drive forward the AI assurance market, particularly in India, thinking about, as you touched on, deployment in financial services, but also as healthcare and agriculture, public services, government services. Are there policy frameworks that you think could really support, or that are needed to support those, critical use cases and adoption and diffusion of AI and AI assurance at the same time? What would you say is key?
I think I want to build on something that Tim was talking about, which is integration to the supply chain, starting off with your procurement process. While in a previous answer I said that governance should never be a stifling factor to innovation and moving forward, there has to be a point at which the economic buyer or the procurement process needs to have a certain standardized pack. And I don't use those words lightly because it's difficult to standardize this. But as an ecosystem, as a country, if you align on a certain requirement set of the AI providers that are going to deploy AI use cases into your organizations, there should be a minimum baseline that aligns with both the company level expectation as well as country level expectation. I think we as a technology company, we see this. We are integrating with Indian companies at the moment, and some of that procurement process is very well aligned to AI systems, and we get through and we're able to showcase the good work that we're doing and provide evidence where it's needed, and it's a smooth process. And then there are there are others that it's a very cumbersome process. It slows down AI adoption because they're trying to get through this with a not fit for purpose set. So I would definitely start at a policy level, which is procurement across the board. Next, and I will always champion this, is have a risk-based approach. You need to have a policy pack that's in place where you're identifying critical infrastructure and critical AI use cases that require the most evidence against them. And then you should prioritize in that manner, and then you can move forward quickly with high impact, low risk use cases and do the effective due diligence on high risk, high impact use cases. So I think those are the two things that I'd probably start with as levers to move quickly in terms of policy.
Thanks, Raj. And Tim, just thinking then, turning it into, okay, the UK, we've been leading the charge in AI assurance for a number of years now. Our government, check it out, published an AI assurance roadmap only last year in terms of how we're going to drive forward the AI assurance market and industry. She said India number 2 for actually implementing the standards, which is great. But so what could the UK and India do together? What could we learn from each other in regards to AI assurance and standards? How do we help each other? What would you say would be key there in terms of going forward?
I mean, I think it's sort of taking it more sort of geopolitical level. So if we were having a kind of conversation about where regulation, standards and assurance were going at the beginning of last year, it was quite clear the direction everything was going in the world. And literally in the last year, everything's kind of gone in multiple directions, it has to be said. And I really think in terms of what the UK and India can do, it's trying to get more harmonisation around it across the board, because it's just going to make things really difficult, particularly to the point earlier on about importers and exporters and so many rules around the world. And
it's just the complexity.
The complexity of the way things are going, because there is, there's always been this tension between the need for regulation to let innovation flourish, but it's just got much more complicated in the last few years. And trying to get, regulation is probably coming, but trying to make sure there is that alignment around a similar sort of approach to regulation, whether it's light touch or not. I think it's something we need to all do together.
Raj, would love any views from your side on that as well. And perhaps what could or does success look like in terms of collaboration between the UK and India on AI assurance? And are there concrete steps you think organisations or policymakers need to think about in terms of the opportunity here because it feels like we're at a similar kind of point in time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think my answer is going to be a little bit biased towards a technology provider that's looking to deploy effectively in this area. But
I think that's allowed.
It's allowed? Okay, fine. So what I would love to see is a lot more collaboration in terms of sharing best practice when it comes to actually governing and assuring AI use cases. There's a lot of work that we're doing with multinational companies, UK-based companies, that we get a lot of learnings from, and we are happy to share those learnings in terms of best practice with organizations that are starting on their governance journey, organizations that have established ecosystem in India that are looking to export, and what is best practice. The idea being that governance should be, again, the accelerator to your deployment. It should answer a lot of questions that your stakeholders have by your quantifiable evidence that you're providing to them based on these kind of governance pathways. The second thing I'd love to see is more collaboration, again, in terms of like a sort of partner swap almost. So we have people that are working in the ecosystem in the UK to spend some time in India and vice versa to make sure that we're learning from both ecosystems. Both have unique challenges that each ecosystem will face at some point, whether it's first or later or vice versa. I think that would be an extremely valuable cross-collaboration opportunity. And then the final one is a potential shared sandbox environment where certain use cases could be tested and different benchmarks could be collaborated upon with visibility into the actual use cases that we were testing.
Yeah, Tim, I see you nodding away. Just before I come to you, sandboxes we've found in the UK, right, to have a really, really important role to really flesh out how these things work, back to our theme of like AI assurance in practice, but also help develop trustworthy and trust between partners, right? Because we're talking about this is really key in terms of supply chains. Do you want to touch on that in terms of the experience of the Sandboxes?
Yeah, I mean, there's two sides to this. I mean, as you say, the UK led this 15, 20 years ago, financial services. So these
FCA started the Sandboxes, right, originally.
So basically, these are areas where you can work with the regulator and try something that's new and not be worried about the regulation that's there. And the sort of talk in the UK is about taking this forward, particularly if the regulations aren't right, then changing them after the pace as well. So that's one side. The other thing we're also involved in, which I haven't mentioned yet, is around the sort of EU AI Act. And so we will be a notified body, and certain organisations we need to work with the notified body to get their products onto the market, so medical devices, toys, etc.
To get their accreditation, basically.
Yeah, they have to basically get designated to get it on the market. And around that, there's a similar structure around sandboxes as well. So in our role as a notified body, we'll probably be involved in those as well to sort of oversee what's happening, but from a sort of non-regulatory perspective. But yes, sandboxes, I mean, particularly given the pace of change in AI, which is frankly bonkers, you know, it's you need something like this.
Bonkers, it's a very technical term in the UK. And also check out the UK's approach in terms of governance, in terms of the AI growth labs that's now being developed, which is a bit like a sandbox approach, but looking at the legislation, the regulations, the rules of the road, and whether in a sandbox environment any of those need to change or need to shift. Because we are also looking at, AI is moving, as we all know, incredibly quickly, and laws and regulations don't move incredibly quickly. So how do you keep pace? But Tasha, any view on that? But also just wanted to come to you on this kind of point about collaboration, because from what I see, India is deploying AI rapidly, right? And scaling the deployment so rapidly, which is amazing to see. The UK, we've had that pioneering practical AI assurance approach. So there must be specific collaboration opportunities here, which could create mutual value. And I'd love your either views from where you've seen other things around the world that could work here, or where do you think the opportunity is for collaboration? So big question, I know.
Yeah, I've got some ideas. So I agree with what Raj said earlier around, I think ultimately the opportunity space for collaboration between the UK and India crosses 3 areas. Ideally, you want shared standards, you want shared skills, and then you want shared evidence of meeting those standards. And if that is the overall frame, then what are a couple of specific problems that I think India is really well placed to help chart the path forward for India, but also for the rest of the world? The first is about trying to get clear about responsibilities across the supply chain. Now, I think in India, it's entirely possible to have a use case that involves, for example, Bharat GPT, that is outputs from that are integrated by Infosys into a system that's deployed in an agricultural context across India. So in that type of use case, it's really important to understand who needs to do what across that supply chain and what is the evidence that needs to pass from one actor to the next to help them do the things that they uniquely need to do. Now, actually, globally, there have been, initial attempts to try and define what a developer of a model needs to do versus a deployer of a finished application. But there are some really important open questions, especially kind of in what I would call the messy middle. What does Infosys in that example need to do relative to the model developer, relative to the system deployer who needs to monitor the system in practice? So I think India, because of its very broad and deep ecosystem in the tech space, is going to be really, really well placed to help define with clarity who needs to do what. The second opportunity in India, I think, is really making sure that we master the art of not just testing in the lab prior to release, but testing in the real world, on an ongoing basis, it has to be efficient and effective to do at scale. But India has such beautiful diversity in linguistic dimensions and cultural dimensions that it really is the case that, you know, the agricultural system deployment in northern India is going to have quite different issues in practice than what it's going to have in southern India. And so helping to find ways to effectively do that real-world testing, that post-deployment monitoring at a scale that is efficient and effective, I think is a real challenge that India can help lead the way on.
So we're going to come to some audience questions, but I'm just going to quickly ask my panel for just some very closing thoughts from their side. And I'm going to give them, 30 seconds, or maybe I'll give them a minute each. But given everything you said, one piece of advice or one area that organizations should really focus on if they're starting or thinking about their AI assurance. Natasha, can I start with you based on what you just said?
Sure. So I'm sure we've got many builders of AI systems in the room. And what I'd encourage you to do is to really think about assurance, about how you create the evidence that people should trust your system as a product capability. You build it in from the very beginning. Assurance, sometimes people think it's just a paperwork exercise at the end of the day. It's not. The best systems that deliver assurance are ones that have it designed in from the very beginning, and you can use AI to help too. So I think really thinking about assurance as a product capability from the very beginning.
Yeah, we've talked about security by design. We've talked about privacy by design. This is the age of assurance by design. There you go. And you can quote me on that. Raj, piece of advice.
I'm going to talk about, Natasha mentioned a car earlier about airbags and brakes. And when I think about AI governance, I think about your company is the car and AI governance is the brakes in that. And a car can only go quickly because it has brakes. So when you're designing your governance deployment, you need to think about how are you going to materialize that in reality in a tangible way. The companies that we see best moving fastest with AI are not the ones with the most sophisticated use case. It's the ones that have the most sophisticated or most tangible AI governance workflow. If you go to somebody in your organization, you ask them, you have a great AI use case idea, how would you move that into production? That should be knowledge across the entire organization. Identify the use case, identify the risk, mitigate it and deploy at scale and continuously monitor it.
Well, to use the car analogy, maybe it's your headlights as well. It's knowing where you're going, right? There you go. You can use that, Raj, if you need to. And then Tim, piece of advice, and then we'll open it up for questions. So please put your hands up for questions.
So the one thing I'll say is everything's moving very quickly, but ourselves and others are putting a lot of things out there for free to help people. So in terms of work that needs to be done around the EU AI Act, for 42001, we've got guides, self-assessment tools, training. There's lots there, so please look to that. And also, we're on the UK Pavilion in Exhibition Hall 14, so come and have a chat to us as well.
Yeah,
you are as well.
That's a great plug, Tim. I'm also going to plug the lovely Tess Buckley. Please wave your hand. So she's the mastermind at Tech UK, and I with Lawrence as well. But Tess has been writing a number of reports at Tech UK, particularly one that came out last year on AI assurance, looking at specific markets and industries. It's a brilliant paper. Please go and check it out. It should be available to download. But Tech UK, we've got loads of material as well. So we're really keen to help. Okay, questions. I'm going to ask you to, wow, okay. For those online, you can't see all the hands up. We're going to go take a few at a time, and we're going to try and do it quite quickly. We did start a bit late, though, so forgive us, organisers, if we just go over a little bit. So, okay, Tess, let's do the best. Let's take these one... Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. So can we take 4 at a time? Is that all right? Keep your questions really tight, if that's okay. I'm going to come to that side. Don't worry. I'm fair. Don't worry. I'll be fair. Okay, go.
Thank you. Mine's a very quick one.
Okay, the microphone's not on. Could we turn the mic on?
Can I take one of the microphones here?
Okay.
Thanks for a great panel. Very quick one for me. Can we do 42001 using AI?
Okay, can you do 42001 using AI? Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Gautam part of Salesforce, basically. So just a quick one on skills, basically, Natasha, you touched upon. Very important pillar. And then you mentioned, Raj, about brakes and cars, right? And if someone basically who doesn't even understand what AI is and doesn't even understand the entire landscape, it's very important for them to understand which one is brake, which one is accelerator, right? So what exactly is Tech UK largely, maybe Sue can answer that, largely is doing in terms of filling in that skill gap? And I have an NGO as well, which works alongside this particular thing, so I'll probably want to touch upon later as well. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, let's come. Let's go to these two here, and then don't worry, we'll try and get through as many as we can. Thank you for keeping them brief, though, sir.
Yeah. So I'm a research scientist, and I think assurance is directly linked with cybersecurity. One of the key aspects of cybersecurity is that no model is going to last forever. Like they deteriorate. So when do the assurances deteriorate, and how is there any policy framework that can help us, like have a sustained assurance metric, something like that?
That's a great question. And next, please, and then I'll take a few answers, and then we'll go to this side of the room.
So we actually implement use cases automation for SMBs. So we try to install brakes and headlights in the system before deploying the use case. But I want if you can talk in realities. For example, if I am implementing for a car washing center, calling AI who will call after the service to the person. How was the service after 2 days, and taking the feedback. This is a regular repetitive work. We automate it for them as a deployment.
Yeah.
So how we should approach? We try to make it safe and reliable. But from you guys, I want to know if we can get any advice. Yeah.
Okay, so any advice on how you do this in reality? Assurance and cybersecurity, so deterioration of models, how do we deal with that? Skills, how do we understand the difference between the brake and accelerator? And then can you use AI for the standard? Tim, should we go quickly, and then we'll go quickly down. We'll come over here, and then we'll have to wrap it up.
I'll be very quick. So in terms of can you use AI for 2001, note it's really about trying to understand your organisation and build it to your own risk profile, your own governance.
Tim, did you just? Oh yeah. Sorry.
So it's really about building it to your own organisation and governance approach. What is coming is a smart standards approach, which means in the future, when the standards will update, it will update into the systems, but that's to come. In terms of the other question about cybersecurity, so firstly within the management system, the approach adapts to your organisation and changes. That's one side. But equally with the assurance infrastructure, it means that you're regularly checked as well. So it's not just a case of you get a certificate and that's it for life. It has to be continual.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Raj, do you want to take any of the other questions that haven't been?
I'll quickly touch on the skills piece and the model visibility piece as well. In terms of skill, your first line of defense is always your people.
Yeah.
And so that's the side of the coin that is the pessimist. Something's going to go wrong. Your people need to understand the limitations of each use case that you put out there and know what is right and what is wrong. The other side of that is through effective upskilling of your organization, you will realize AI benefits quicker and also identify areas where AI can be deployed effectively. So having that skills-based training in place, whether it's internally driven or externally, is valuable for multiple reasons, and every company should be doing that as a baseline. To the question on model retirement, model drift, the way that we approach it at Holistic AI is understanding the inherent risk of that use case. What are you trying to achieve? The technology you're using to achieve it, the data that goes into it, and you benchmark your repetitive monitoring based on that. So there's email autocomplete. It's something that's not super high risk. You don't need to revalidate that system maybe once every 12 months. There'll be things that you want to monitor continuously. There's items that you want to reassess every 3 months. That should be formed part of your governance framework at an organization level so that you understand what you're trying to achieve and everybody knows what they're trying to baseline against.
Great, thanks, Rod. Natasha, anything you wanted to add on any of those very quickly?
I think they covered them well. I don't know
All
if
right,
there's
well,
one question from the
let's
side.
see
that we
what.
want to
Let's see
take.
what's coming up over here. Okay, we'll start with a gentleman here, and then let's go. Yeah, okay.
I think we're only
1, 2, 3. Okay, so this gentleman, and then can we go with the lady here? Okay, hang
I'll
on.
pass on this to you.
Okay, very quickly. Thank you.
Is my question, my voice audible? Yeah, I'm Subbaraju. Here my question is specifically for Microsoft. As the quantum has become reality now, do we require a paradigm, different kind of a approach for AI assurance?
Okay. Different approach for AI assurance in quantum. We'll come to that in a minute, if that's okay. But it's a good question, and it's something we're actually exploring at Tech UK already. Go ahead.
So I identify high impact processes for SMBs, US and UK. And my question is with CloudBot and ModBot, you're talking about certification, you're talking about compliance. And when the business owners want the high impact processes to be implemented, and the technology is changing every day. You cannot control the guardrails. These boards are easily able to break that. So how do we propose something to them and implement when the compliance is also growing every day?
Yeah.
Because it will take a hell lot of time to use the use case wisely and make money out of it. So how do we do it?
Okay, thank you for all your questions. I'm going to have to hold it there. I'm really sorry.
We just have to hold the questions now.
Apologies.
I love that everyone's curious, but just for timing's sake. Thank you.
Sorry. So actually, that's probably for Raj, but we'll start with Natasha on the quantum. It's a great question and something in the UK we've been working with the National Quantum Computing Centre on responsible quantum and what we can learn from AI assurance into the quantum world as well. But please answer.
Look, I think it is a fantastic question, and there are going to be elements of our sort of AI governance and assurance program that will very much carry across, and there'll be new things that need to be added. Right? Yes, and some of the governance processes as well. And there will also need to be new techniques and approaches built on top, particularly as we confront, as sort of a need to address, whole new sort of cryptographic errors and challenges in that space. So what I would say is that while it is potentially a pretty significant paradigm shift, we've had to navigate these waves already, and we have to apply the same skill sets that we use to move from traditional AI and ML to generative AI and now agentic AI systems. Actually, all of these waves have required new and different approaches, and so I think of the impacts of quantum as along a spectrum. In some areas, they will be very, very significant, and whole new approaches will be needed. But actually, there will also be many elements that we will just be able to strengthen and build upon as well. To our this lady's question in the front row. Look, what I would say is that it is the case that, unless you have a baseline mandated by the law, not everyone is going to follow all of the responsible practices. We know that from past waves of technology that continues to apply here. But my experience within Microsoft tells me that actually, good hygiene when it comes to upfront risk management doesn't just result in more responsible product, it actually just results in a better product overall. So I would encourage you, as you do this work, to really find the business case champions of where the product has been both, well designed to meet user needs and responsibly designed, and use those champions to help build broader awareness of why we do this work. Because the business value is very real. Yeah. And while there might be instances in the ecosystem where, things are pretty fast and loose, I think you have to look over longer time horizons to see what is actually sustainable and valuable in the medium and long term.
Thank you, Natasha. We're going to leave it there. We've run out of time, but thank you so much for all the hands and all the questions. Please, can we thank the panel for Tim, Siraj, and Natasha in the normal way? And thank you all for being here. It's a real pleasure. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.